is in the process of uploading?
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. First of all, I'd like to say that as the Executive Director of NES Action, an elections observer group and a civil society organization, we had deployed over 400 elections observers across the country who sent in varying reports, which in fact are still coming in and which are still being reviewed. For us, we were looking at the entire electoral process, the procedures, the ability of the poll officials to conduct their duties, and if there were any electoral malpractices. Now, when it comes to the IREV, it was varying responses from across board. In some cases, we learned that the polling unit results were uploaded immediately. In other cases, they were not uploaded, and in some cases, they were not uploaded as at that time. Some of them were instructed to wait until they got to the ward collation center before they could do their upload. So, based on the feedback that we've had from INEC and different other organizations that have put out statements, we are aware that there may have been some heightened expectations of the IREV functioning on a national scale. And maybe one thing that could have been done to improve the process would have been a national stress test of the portal to see that everything related to its functionality was checkmated. But that was not done, but all the same.
There was a mock exercise. We shouldn't have
Yeah, so it's also the first of this scale on this national scale, and I think it is still commendable, the efforts that have been put in by the International Electoral Commission. It is a time when we all have to be patient, more patient than we are right now, because there's so much that could be interpreted ahead of time. But if we're able to be patient, we may be able to see what is actually going on. We're aware every little thing could have an interpretation. The delay of collation, you called it being suspended. The chairman said it was adjourned. He said there will be interludes, So, every little action, and it's always like that around elections, once it starts getting from the sorting and counting to the collation, the tension becomes more and more until the declaration of results. Now, one thing that also was probably not anticipated is the fact that as elections observers, as other stakeholders in the process, party agents, the electoral umpire, security agencies, they all receive a level of training ahead of elections. But as we have seen now, it's like taking a part of the major work, the electronic transmission of results, something that a lot of people have been trained about, and giving it to the common man who may not have clear understanding of some of the issues. This would not be the first time that what we are seeing online or on the IREV has been made real, but it's the first time that everyone is having the ability to see it all across the country, and they may not have the skill set to interpret. For some polling units, when the result is collated or put together at the polling unit, it's not exactly the final. It's not the end. There's the work that needs to be done at the collation center, and sometimes it may change the results. This is not the first time that we are seeing maybe manipulation of results or interception or interference from whatever party or from whatever quarter, trying to ensure that they win at that lower level. But it's the first time we're seeing it in full view on a national scale, and it brings the question of threats to national security. And for some of us, what's of greatest interest is the sovereignty of the nation state Nigeria. This was done with probably the best interest at heart, transparency, let's show you what it is. But was Nigeria ready for the interpretation of these results on a national scale? It's a lot of
Discussion.
discussion.
I think we'll come back
out
to
of
that
the
issue of the IRF. Do you share with his own opinion?
Now, the expectations for the 2023 general elections were high.
Very high.
Generally, on every front. And this is an INEC that is working with the same timelines, not factoring in timelines for the new innovations. Now, I'm looking at the election procedures manual that is used to train SPOs, poll officials and all that. It's also online. They have what they call inexschool.org from the Electoral Institute. Now, the steps for how to record votes on Form EC8A series, what the PO should do. And then, of course, the sorting and then the counting and recording of votes. It says there at step 10, after completing different forms and booklets, transmit the election results electronically to the collation system as prescribed in the regulations and guidelines for the conduct of elections. Use the BVAS to scan, take a picture of the completed, signed, stamped and dated Form EC8A. Step 12, upload the scanned copy of the EC8A to the INEC results viewing portal as prescribed by the Commission. Step 13, take the BVAS and the original copy of each of the forms in tamper evidence envelopes to the registration area collation center. Then it says under the word collation, you just give me a moment. I prefer to read it out from their document. Now, in the word collation, it says the word collation officer is to take delivery of all that the presiding officer brought in. Also document cancellations, because there are times when in the polling unit, maybe the result was written under duress, they were forced. And are we going to be able to take into account that those elections were held when, if they get to the ward collation center, they would now have to review how the election was conducted, and maybe the presiding officer would now explain that, look, this particular result, we wrote it under duress, this happened and this happened and that happened. Now, if that is already uploaded on the IREV, will INEC come and say, oh, general public, we have to take down this particular polling unit results because this is the report of the presiding officer? Yes, so I think there are two things there that need to be tidied up. When exactly should, and I'm not looking at what they promised now, I'm looking at what would work subsequently. When exactly should the upload be done? Yes, it is transparent to upload right from the polling unit, but in such cases where there was violence or there was serious intimidation and they had to write results under duress, is it advisable that those results show up on the IREV and then we are like, this is what happened in this polling unit? Or do we allow the ward collation officers to do their due diligence and do their job on whether that polling unit result should be accepted or cancelled before it's uploaded on the IREV?
Is there a stipulated time when that result is supposed to be uploaded? Because I remember during the up-cycle elections, as at 9 p.m., people were already mentioning the winners of those elections.
If people are still voting, you can't stipulate time with, you know, our polling units. Some polling units we saw 3,000, some we saw up to 8,000, and you know, you can't say at this time. I know, you know.
So and again, going just furtherance of what you're saying, I think the Electoral Act provides that INEC can review the results, and if there's reason to cancel it, they can, you know, yes, unlike what we had in the past, where once a declaration has been made, it's sacrosanct, it's only a court of law that can review that.
Yes, the new Electoral Act, we discussed it yesterday. The new Electoral Act empowers the presiding officer and gives the INEC officers power to cancel results, especially when the number of ballot cast is above those accredited. So the presiding officer does not need to return that particular result in the polling unit.
It's all right. We'll take a short break now, and then maybe when we get back, we'll change gear in the discussion. We'll look at the National Assembly, how the picture is gradually taking up moving forward.
Obviously, there were challenges. We also got reports of drivers refusing to move. Some of them said they've never even been to a bank, talk less of have a bank account for you to transfer to, and without cash, they're not going to go anywhere. And, you know, we know the situation. So that definitely would have played a key role in the late delivery of materials. This is not something we've experienced before. And I think that's also another thing playing up in this election. There are a number of things we've not experienced before that we're experiencing for the first time. The IREV is one of them. This cash policy coming in at the time of a general election is also one of them. And while on one hand we saw a lot of good work put in by INEC in the way the elections were conducted, we saw vote buying reduced and vote trading reduced drastically. We saw the presence of anti-graft agencies also trying to curb those kind of electoral offenses. But now in the sorting, counting and collations part, we are seeing different other things that could require improvement. The unfortunate thing is that the general public want what they want. Everyone who voted wants what they want, and that agitation is rising without looking at much of the backstory and how we got here. That's the major challenge right now.
Okay.
And we need to be on that to at least let them remember that we came from somewhere.
Exactly. I mean,
the most important thing is we're headed in the direction. Headed somewhere. Yes.
Well, I want to back up a little bit to the IREV, because I'm looking at it right now on my phone, and we can see 48,340 polling units have come in. Now, for results that's come in, you could just view the results, those that have not been submitted. But when you go to Ekiti, maybe Ekiti that has been retired, you can see it there, submitted and completed. So the results for Ekiti are there, and I believe the party agents of the parties were also there when this result was presented. And if there were issues with the results, they would definitely have voiced out, because they also had their own party agents represented from the polling units to the ward to the LGA and at the National Coalition Center. And
Ella, from what you're viewing now, is it clear? Because I know some CSOs had also raised concern that it's a bit blurry, the ones that are uploaded. How clear is that? Okay, so now at first, as at yesterday, it came out. Now I'm speaking from, this is a phone device, maybe with a laptop it may be different, but at first it was a full page, you'll see, and some of them were a bit blurry, some of them were clear. But now what they've done, it comes up in a zoomed format, so you more or less have to move it a little bit around to see every figure, but it's legible now. Okay. So it's now legible, and that also reflects on what INEC had said in their letter, that at least from last night you would have seen some improvements to the IREV. So I don't think we should jettison the IREV or the use of it. We are seeing the results. Maybe when states send in their results, it now relies on Nigerians to do the due diligence. The result is presented. If you were at the PU, if you were a party agent, if you were a poll official, you can revert back to your own results and check.
Was that what happened?
Was that what? Exactly. And then if it was not, of course, we have the 90 days for every claim to be presented before the Elections Petition Tribunal. Okay. So let's every Nigerian follow, the law and follow the due process with whatever grievance that they may have. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. But
needs to make sure that nobody is disenfranchised, and the complaints in several quarters that elections did not hold in the affected areas due to alleged due to logistic problems and alleged electoral misconduct. So, like we're not through with even voting. We're waiting for results. We're not done.
Some people are waiting for the results, like yesterday, like it's 48 hours and we are still collating. No, we're not still collating. We're still voting. And I think it's an effort to ensure nobody is disenfranchised by all the challenging circumstances that we're faced, and that's also worthy to note. But then it may reflect poorly in the turnout of these voters in these locations where the elections are still being conducted, because it's weekday. It's not like the no movement is still, in place. So will people turn out en masse like they did on Saturday? That's the only question.
And Abia say they sit at home on Mondays. How will it affect the conduct of this election? Will people still come out to vote? Will there be no issues with the security?
I believe the sit at home has been suspended, right? Yes. So
but they still
they still do that. This
there's still that
there was arrest the IPA.
So that's also something that's it's a bit worrisome, but at least the opportunity is there for everyone to go out and vote. It's not 2:30 Saturday. If you were not on the queue, you don't get to vote. I believe INEC is doing their possible best to meet every challenge that they had faced by allowing people to still be voting even on Monday. While other states are collating.
But we saw a lady that was trending online that her eye was...
Yes, she
actually spoke with her live, and she talked about her ordeal, and in spite of that she still came out to vote.
Yes, and particularly the fact that there was no arrest. That is what is a bit disturbing for us, especially where places where there are reports of violence. I expected that some persons would have been arrested, especially with considering the amount of security agencies that have been deployed. So, but I don't think it is a good omen for for us, especially in Lagos. I think that incident took place in Lagos. We are supposed to have seen or have heard reports of thugs or persons being arrested for such incident. But I am very disturbed that we've not gotten any report of any person arrested, especially for that particular lady. I mean, for you to have gone to interview the lady, I expected to also see that or hear that the persons who were involved have been arrested, by the security agency. But the failure of the security personnel to have arrested, that is really not good for the election.
I think it really speaks to the resilience of the youth. I mean, that picture is worth 1,000 words. I mean, that was a moment anyone would have just given up and run home and just given up on the entire process, in fact. And nobody would blame you. But just the other day, we were speaking to the resilience of the youth, and we were here together, and you were talking about how the youth are not ready to go through the ordeals of and the cumbersome process of the elections. And we showed a woman who went out with a mat and slept at the polling unit the night before.
Yes.
And we were saying the youth are not ready. Now, with that picture, what would you now say? I mean, can't you see that the youth are actually resilient? They were actually even determined to do all that they could in this election, and I think Nigeria is going further.
Was Rivers State not an anticlimax for you, considering what happened in 2019 with all the violence that we saw and all of that? But it appears this year's election is not as violent on election day as we had in the past in Rivers State.
I think level and the percentage of violence at the polling units or the wards and even the LGA collation levels was really down to minimum. I'm sure it may not even be up to 5% by the time all the elections are done, and that also is a huge plus for Nigeria's electoral process.
Okay.